Here and already you got a like. Thank you so much for being here and joining me for this live stream this evening. I don't think I'm going to be out here too long, maybe an hour or so. The family wants to sit outside tonight. We have a trampoline, so we're going to go lay it on the trampoline and watch the meteor shower. So we're hoping to see some shooting stars tonight, see the meteor shower. I believe it's called the Leonids. Leonids? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Anyway, it's supposed to be a pretty decent show tonight, so I'm looking forward to that. Normally here in the Pacific Northwest, we do not have clear skies during the winter, so that makes tonight pretty nice for us because it is very clear, and we should have a nice view of the sky tonight for that. So, looking forward to it. Um, anyway, not a whole lot going on as far as anything new to add to like the news as far as the lumber industry goes, outside of what my video had said earlier today. But I thought it was pretty significant, some of the things that I'm experiencing within the lumber industry, because really that has for me, it has a telling sign of what is going on throughout the rest of the economy out there. And now, something that I had said many times before is that we are going to see a manufacturing slowdown, which is going to turn into the real shortages that we are going to experience here in the United States. And I do believe that is going to happen at some point. Now, at this point, we don't really see the shortages. I mean, there's gluts everywhere, and you're seeing the articles all over the place talking about Walmart and Target being oversupplied and how that's actually a problem. I was even doing reports on how, like, the overstock businesses out there who buy, like, people's, like, either their return stuff or their overstock inventory, and then they sell it for a discount. These guys were, like, overwhelmed with a lot of stuff there for a while, but everything is going to shift again at some point, and you are going to see the shortages happen again here in the United States. And this time it's going to be for real shortages, because those shortages are going to come from the lack of manufacturing. Now, somebody had mentioned in the comments earlier saying, why would China do this? Are they trying to hurt the United States with the lack of manufacturing of goods? And I don't think they really are trying to necessarily hurt the United States by the failure of producing this stuff that they would send to the United States. Like, I don't think that's necessarily it. I think what China is really more in the situation that they're trying to combat is the Cantillon effect of all that new money coming into the system, driving up the prices of everything, and then forcing foreign imports to start competing with the domestic manufacturing. Really, that doesn't happen unless the people start diving into luxuries. And that's really what we were experiencing throughout the last decade, is that all these emerging economies started really enjoying that new money that was coming in, and they start moving into luxuries, which is really where the problem starts to exist. It's because of that move into luxuries that starts driving in the ever-increasing amounts of foreign imports that eventually drives out the domestic manufacturing and then forces everybody eventually into poverty. Now, I don't think like that it's happening so quick that they can actually prevent it. I think that really the slowdown in manufacturing from China is really due to the fact that they had so little orders coming in due to the oversupply that was taking place here in the United States, and then also recognizing that Cantillon effect to try and combat that whole situation. I mean, here in the United States, we experienced it big time when we were the number one manufacturer of the world. We sent out more products and imported more money from anybody else in the entire world, and then we lent that money out. Now we import and borrow from the rest of the world. It's a complete flip. So when we used to have new money coming in from the manufacturing that we had done, now we got new money coming in from the debt issuance that we do. And once the people stop buying the debt, like not the people here in the United States or the Federal Reserve, but I'm talking about the world. Once the world stops buying the U.S. Treasury or the government's debt, then we really won't have new money coming in. It will only be the Federal Reserve who is the buyer of treasuries. And at that point, we could really expect to see that hyperinflation scenario. We're not going to see the hyperinflation scenario so long as the dollar is the world reserve currency. If it maintains that status, I do not see a case where we would have a hyperinflation scenario. But that won't be the case forever. At some point, the world will abandon the dollar for the world reserve currency and move on to something else. But that isn't happening tomorrow or the next day. Anyhow, what are you guys talking about? Makes sense when they're not going to need the parking lot for customers soon. Let's see here. Why would China do that? Ever heard of unrestricted warfare? Why would China do that? Okay, so let me see if I can explain this again. So the way the Cantillon effect works, right? And it's the new money, right? It doesn't, as so long as the new money comes into the system, there's no problem, right? As long as it's continuous and there's never any change to that. And really, it's not a problem with the new money turning off either. What the problem came from is the fact that when the new money was coming in, people wanted to enjoy that new money by increasing their standard of living. That's where the problem really starts to increase. It's because that driving that new money increasing the standard of living is what starts the process of foreign imports competing with the domestic manufacturing. And so when you have a manufacturing powerhouse like China, who has economies, like their economy has failed many times throughout history, so it's not like they don't understand how the economy works. And if there was anything that they could do to try and prevent this new money from coming into the system, driving people into luxuries, which would eventually drive out the domestic manufacturing, is to try and prevent the manufacturing from taking place in the first place, right? And this is where this stupid COVID, like zero COVID policy that's coming from China just doesn't make any sense unless you think about it from that kind of perspective. When you put in the Cantillon effect and the slowdown of manufacturing to prevent that new money from coming into the system, and then eventually destroying the whole economy by driving people into luxuries, and then once the new money turns off, everybody fails. So if you could have the new money turn off, and then people who were never dove into luxuries but held on to that money, like actually saved it, or then even better, like turned around and invested that into more production, then you wouldn't have that situation take place where you have a failing economy. But it doesn't work like that, because once people get money, what do they want to do? Right? You want to enjoy the new money. You want to enjoy a better house, better clothing, better food, better entertainment, everything that you want in life, right? I mean, you don't want to just sit there and live the same life that you've always lived, but yet you're earning all this extra money. I mean, all like beyond what you need. Who would just sit there and say, "Oh, wow, I got all this money, but I'm not gonna enjoy any of it ever." Like, that doesn't make sense. So it's just a system. It's a cycle that's, it's cyclical. It's going to happen no matter what. And there's no reversing it. Like, I can't find anywhere, like even Cantillon's essay or anywhere else, where there's a reversal of this effect, right? You can slow it down. You can maybe stall it out a little bit, but eventually it's going to happen. And then it fails. It's just the way it goes. Thank you very much, Lavish Patch Kid, for the $10. I really appreciate that super chat, man. What's coming isn't a recession. It's a planned collapse by the people who run everything. Recession implies temporary. This isn't. This is the future. Um, okay. I could kind of take some of that into consideration as far as like what the Federal Reserve is planning on doing. Now, the Federal Reserve, like at least from my opinion, from what the Federal Reserve is attempting to do right now, is they are trying to get the Fed funds up to that 5%. Now, I don't think they're going to have 5% actually impacting the economy, because they would have to have it at 5% for 6 months to a year before that really starts to impact the economy. Remember, the Fed funds is a delayed reaction to the economy. So once they lift the Fed funds rate, it takes 6 months to a year before that starts to impact, right? So right now we are feeling the effects of like somewhere around a 2.5% Fed funds rate, which is actually neutral when you go back and you look at like a lot of the economists out there, what they believe would be neutral for the Fed funds level, which is a rate that is no longer accommodating nor restricting the economy. Well, 6 months to a year ago, this is about where we are on the Fed funds level. All right, it's just right around the 2, going into that 2.5%. So that's what's affecting the economy right now. We're at neutral. From this point on, we start going into a restrictive economy. Now, if the Federal Reserve continues to lift interest rates, again, it'll take time before it'll eventually get to the economy. But what I have a feeling is going to happen is that by the time it starts to really impact the economy, like really starts driving that recession to the point that the Fed is going to have to do something, that 5% still wasn't like affecting the economy yet. Like they haven't gotten there yet. So, in my opinion, like right now, what we have is the Federal Reserve who is anticipating the next move, which is going to be dropping of interest rates. However, the dropping of interest rates really needs that 5% in order to stimulate the economy. So, the Federal Reserve would want to drop that Fed funds rate around 5% to stimulate the economy. That encourages people to go out there, buy cars, houses, go on vacation, do whatever. But if the Federal Reserve can't drop the 5%, they can never have like that perception to the people that they have lowered the interest rates, and now is a good time to go out there and spend money or take out debt. So if they don't have it, then they don't have that tool to use. And that's where the real problem is because the next recession is going to force them into negative interest rates. And now we've already learned from the Bureau of International Settlements and some of the things that they had talked about years ago is that taking interest rates into negative territory isn't going to be exactly the easiest thing to do when you have cash in the system. Now, I'm not talking about like negative interest rates at the banking system. I'm talking negative interest rates all the way down to your savings account, like that kind of negative interest rates. And so if you're going to have that kind of negative interest rates attached to your bank account, you're going to pull cash out immediately. Like you're not going to keep your cash in the bank and lose it to a negative interest rate. So the Bureau of International Settlements had already came up with the statements saying that there's no way we can do this with cash in the system. So we're going to have an e-currency. That's what they refer to it as, which is essentially the central bank digital currency. So once we have a central bank digital currency in the system, then they can pull all the cash out. Then they can drive interest rates into negative territory. And I really think that's what the Federal Reserve is up to. That's what they really want to try and do, is to try and get their ammo back by getting the Fed funds up to the 5%, even though I don't think they can allow 5% to impact the economy. And then when they do drop interest rates down, that's it. The ammo is gone. And the only effective tool they're going to have after that is to go negative interest rates. And in order to do that, they have to have the central bank digital currency in play. So all that stuff is really where I think the Fed is like heading us to. How long does it take to get there? I don't know. Like I really, to me, a lot of this stuff happens a lot faster, or it seems to me it's happening a lot faster than it really is. This stuff is a slow grind, so it takes a while. Did I get another super chat up there? I did. Thank you, Lavish Patch Kid, for the $10. Normal being our GDP minus 10 trillion when it's flatlines. Good years will be 1 to 2% decline versus bad years that drop 3 to 7% until then. Normal being our GDP minus about 10 trillion when it flatlines. Good years will be 1 to 2% decline versus bad years being 3 to 7% until then. Oh, I guess I see what you're saying is that on a good year we're going to have a 1 to 2% decline in GDP, and on the bad years it's going to be 3 to 7, and that's going to be, yeah, I see what you're getting at. I don't know. Time will tell. We're going to find out what happens. I mean, this is the thing about the Federal Reserve is that they have tools that nobody knows about, that nobody knows they're going to use. I mean, like I said, with the special purpose vehicles, nobody was talking about special purpose vehicles before the pandemic. And when the pandemic kicked in, boom, 13 lending facilities funded with hundreds of billions of dollars to backstop the entire financial market. So, like, that was something that not a whole lot of people were considering, Let's see here. Man, thank you so much, Lavish Patch Kid, for the super chats, man. You're loading me up. That's really cool of you. In order to make the world one, they have to bring down the rich countries. Yeah, this isn't like old school boom and bust cycles. It's planned demolition. Yeah, now I can really see that. I mean, I do see like the world powers, like the New World Order, getting together to try and tokenize and put everything on a blockchain technology so they can track and trace and tax and do all that stuff. Like, I really do believe that is part of the plan, and it seems to be going forward, Relaxing Kiwi, thank you so much for the $2.99. No V for me. So happy about it. Was all about the money. Okay, well, we all have our joys in life. When do you think the Fed will pivot? The Fed will pivot. The Fed won't pivot until the average inflation rate hits 2%. Right? And we don't know exactly when that's going to be, because the Fed doesn't come out and say, hey, this is how we determine what average inflation rate's going to be. Like, if we knew average inflation over the last 5 years, 10 years, is it, like, how do they come up with this average inflation? even going into the Fed's documents and looking at how they come up with this average 2% rate, like I can't figure it out. Like I don't know what the formula is for the average 2%. So it leads me to believe that it's up to the Fed's arbitrary decision that, hey, we're at 2% average now because, we don't really tell you how we figure this out, or at least I haven't been able to figure it out. Nobody's sent me the links or anything to how they figured it out. So I don't know, like how long is it going to take? I don't know. But to me, like once you see the 2% inflation target get hit, then it's not going to be too much farther after that. Like, it could be a ways, a little ways, a long ways, but it's going to be sometime after that 2% target has been hit. It's at that point that the whole world is going to be screaming at the Federal Reserve saying they're doing unnecessary damage. They're at their 2% target. They don't need to be keeping interest rates elevated. And this is the type of thing that you're going to hear for a while, right? And the Federal Reserve is then going to come up with their excuse saying, well, we're not really going for a 2% target. We're going for an average. So we have to keep these interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time. And it's not unnecessary pain that we're causing to you. We told you we were going to inflict some pain months ago, right? Which they did. I mean, they said their households and, the people and businesses were going to feel some pain going into the future. And that's the reason why. All right. Reach out to me when you need physical therapy for always looking over to your right side. Oh, yeah, doing that? Yeah, I tell you, man, I could probably use some physical therapy on my shoulders and my back, because I kind of tore myself up a lot when I was doing construction. All right, I'm headed to Hawaii and Japan in a week. I just booked $15,000 Japan airline first class flight from Tokyo to New York with credit card miles. That'd be a nice trip. Have fun, Doc. All right. It's nice to see you, All Nighter. All Nighter always hits my channel, man. I love it. Good to see you here, man. Makes me wonder, there are a lot of rich people that are actually paying cash for these first class flights. Yeah, I can imagine that. Can there be high unemployment and high inflation? For a short time there will be, but no, not for any length of time. Ultimately, if you don't have people working, then you don't have people buying stuff. And if you don't have people buying stuff, then you're not going to have price increases or the demand coming from it. Now, could we see it for a short time or maybe even a significant amount of time due to the lack of manufacturing that has taken place? And the fact that we're a consumer-based nation here, so if we don't have something to sell, then we don't have a job, right? So we need to buy stuff from other nations and then sell it in order for us to have any kind of economy here, consumer-based. So can we have high inflation and high unemployment? Yeah. I mean, if we have a lack of manufactured goods coming into the United States, that lack of inventory or the real shortages that I feel are going to happen is going to cause prices to go up. And at the same time, if you don't have people working, then you're going to have unemployment rising at the same time. Those two things won't last forever. I mean, it will be a time for that, but it won't. It'll eventually, people will start businesses and start hiring, and then the commerce will start, and then everything will pick up. But, just like everything, you got booms and bust cycles. That would be the bust, All right. In regards to real estate, house prices may go down a bit, but the real correction isn't the price of the house, it's the value of the money. Thoughts? Um, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of ways that you can think about the housing market and what's going to happen with the real estate and the prices and stuff. Um, but to me, I've gone over the scenarios that I would need to see. You think about it, what would cause house prices to fall? It's a supply and demand issue. If you have more supply than you have demand, then prices come down. So how are you going to get the supply, right? There's obviously a demand for houses because there's still, people out there who looking for houses to buy. I mean, until there's nobody out there looking for houses, then you're going to have a demand for them. Now, how big that demand is going to be subject to how much supply you have. Where does the supply come from? That's going to be the major question, right? Now, the obvious place coming from the new home builders, right? But the new home builders have slowed down dramatically. So that's not going to be the place that you're going to get inventory coming from. The other place would come from foreclosures, right? But now in foreclosure land, what we would need to expect is a high unemployment rate, right? So if you have high unemployment, there's less people working, they're not being able to make their payments. And then boom, here you got the foreclosure starting up. Now, we did a video, was it yesterday or this morning? I can't remember, man. I've done a few of them now. But we were talking about how these sneaky foreclosures are now coming in left over from the great financial crisis, where people thought that these loans were like discharged or just like dissolved or just gone away or whatever. But that wasn't the case. They still owe the money and they didn't know it. And all of a sudden, boom, they're getting hit with this foreclosure paperwork saying that you owe, hundreds of thousands of dollars on this loan that you thought was restructured and had it just like disappear or something like that. So I don't know if that's actually that kind of foreclosure is going to add to the inventory levels. Like, to me, that's going to be, I mean, I think it's a bummer deal for those people who are suffering from that, but I don't think that's going to be such a widespread case that it's going to start adding to the inventory of homes. The other thing, like, I haven't really mentioned because I haven't seen the demographics actually shift to it yet, but the other thing is going to come from is the baby boomer population just simply growing old and dying off, and they're going to have to leave those houses to somebody. But that's not going to come in like a wave of foreclosures. It's not going to come like boom instantly. It's going to come over time as that, continues to happen. So as far as I can tell, like, I don't think the house prices are going to come down until we see unemployment rise. Now, as far as the dollar losing value, I disagree with that. I have disagreed with that for a long time. I said that the dollar was going to strengthen going into the future. I was right. Now, it's not so much noticeable here in the United States, but it's definitely noticeable outside of the United States. Everybody outside of the United States wants dollars and they want them bad. And they're strengthening up by the day. Now, of course, we're seeing the dollar index drop from the 111, 110, whatever it was, 112, down to like 106, 107 right now. It's just part of the, part of the what is it, overvalued, undervalued thing. So there's market corrections that are going to take place. The dollar index is going to go much higher. I mean, so long as the Federal Reserve is going to continue on with their monetary tightening policy, where they are going to be pulling dollars out of the system, then you're going to continue to see that happen. You're going to see the dollar index continue to go up. And with the rest of the world, if they decide that they don't want dollars, that's going to continue to cause the dollar to strengthen. Either way, there's no scenario in which that I see the dollar doing anything but strengthening until everybody finally abandons I'm finally learning to say the word abandon, finally gets out of the dollar altogether and starts sending those dollars back to the United States. That's going to be the scary scenario. But until then, I see more demand for the dollars outside of the United States increasing and continuing to increase. And that's going to be very beneficial to us here in the United States if you have dollars that you're going to be spending outside of the United States. Like if you're going to travel or you want to invest outside of the United States, that opportunity is coming, and it's coming big time. All right. Right on, DB. Thank you so much for the $10. Very, very much appreciate that. A tenner for your thoughts, man. That is very cool of you. You guys are always so supportive, man. I mean, I know I say it every time when I'm out here, but you really are. Like, I mean, I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for YouTube and you guys being here with me and everything. Like, it's like really changed my life, and I really appreciate everything you do for me. So being out here is, I mean, I enjoy it just as much as I think you guys do. All right, let's see here. Would love to hear your thoughts on the peak oil theory idea implications. Okay, I don't know if you guys ever followed Peak Prosperity or the crash course that Dr. Martins did, Chris Martins. That is a really good series that he had done, and I tell you, I watched that thing probably about, I don't know, he made that thing a long time ago, better than 10 years ago, 14 years ago. And it was really incredible because he's talking about peak everything, especially peak oil discovery, peak oil production, and stuff like that. Now, I really enjoy the information, and I find it quite accurate and very telling of what's going to come to the future. But one thing that I have found is that people will adapt quickly very quickly to stuff. And even though the situation right now calls for a particular like system to occur or to continue, it doesn't mean that it won't change. And so like even when you see like things like this peak oil idea, or that we're going to run out of oil, or that oil is going to get so expensive we're all going to die because we can't farm or something like that, that would be the case if things didn't change, if people didn't adapt, right? But people will adapt. They will change. And when they lose the ability to use oil for production, they will switch to something else, or they will figure out a way, or something will snap, right? I mean, otherwise everybody will die. So one way or the other, something's going to happen. And I have a feeling that people aren't just going to sit around and wait to die. They will figure it out. They will change the way they behave. They will, invent, invention. That's definitely comes from necessity, right? People will figure it out. And so although I think it's a scary situation as far as peak oil goes and what could come from that, especially like the farming, because that's really, people don't realize we eat oil. That's what it comes down to. Without oil we cannot farm. And so that's going to be, something to very much consider, is that there's going to be like food famine shortages and stuff like that due to the fact that people just simply can't farm from the equipment that they have. They are back to using shovels and hoes and stuff like that. And when you go and you read Cantillon's essay, that was the majority of what people did, was farm. Like 90%, of what people did. All right. Once a bore is drilled, oil is free. Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Using hose, lots of laugh. Yeah, right. What year was it when non-land owners got to vote? I don't know. What year was that? That was quite a while ago. I mean, basically, the Constitution was written for landowners and nobody else. So, I don't know. Oil comes out for free mostly. Sometimes compression is needed. Dry wells come back after a couple, 3 years. Looks like the WFH is here to stay. Twitter melting down due to ultimatum. Alright, let's go back up here. Will we ever return to the gold standard? No, probably not. I don't think there will ever be a return to the gold standard. Not in the sense that we had experienced it in the past. Like, I've never experienced the gold standard. I wasn't alive then. But if you were to consider, like, a return to the gold standard in the sense that we once had it, I don't think that's going to happen. Simply because I just don't think that you're going to be able to get the people to turn their gold in. Right, so that would be part of it, is like a gold confiscation in order to have the gold on hand to back the currency again. So I just don't see that happening. Like, I just don't think there's going to be a gold confiscation. There could be like a partial backing to the currency, and I kind of consider this one to be like a real possibility, where you could take like a U.S. Treasury and then say, like, when this thing matures, you can either get the dollars or you can get the gold, like whatever is, you sign up for. And then even when it's gold, like, it may not even be like the physical you get. It could be just the cash equivalent of what the physical price would be. So I don't know if that's necessarily like a gold backing to the dollar, but it could kind of give it like a start to a gold standard. And so if you had like a treasury that was backed by gold, or at least partially backed by gold, then you can like start weaseling your way into a gold standard again. But to just like drop a gold standard, no, that ain't gonna happen. Never, unless there was a complete crash of the system, we went to barter, and then the people chose to use gold and silver as their form of currency. Then we could return to the gold standard again. But without an absolute crash of the system, or then some kind of, clever way of navigating it into the treasuries or something like that, I just don't see a return to the gold standard again. And not without a confiscation, and then the people would not put up with that. They wouldn't go for it at all. All right. Why are they talking about raising rates to 7% when the yield curve is so flat? I don't think that the Fed, I mean, if you're talking the Fed funds level, I don't think the Fed funds rate is going to hit 7%. I mean, it could. I mean, what do I know? I mean, I can't predict the future. But I mean, I think at 7%, that would be so damaging, like even psychologically damaging to the economy, because people would be like flipping out at that point. Even right now, I mean, they've already said that the Fed has gone too far. So if you can imagine going all the way up to 7, I mean, that's going to say that they are, really have gone too far. So I don't think 7% is really necessarily on the table for it. But yeah, I mean, I guess it could happen. I mean, if inflation doesn't go down, then they might just keep raising the rates, right? Hey, thank you very much, Relaxing Kiwi, for the 2.99. I was talking about, what do you got there? Not Lady V. All control. I can't see with the little indicator. What is that you have there? I can't tell. Oh well. I produce methane at home. Yeah, I guess everybody does. All right, you're going to need a lot of vegetables to power trucks and feed people and farm animals. Um, yeah, you will. But it's like, you can produce to just about any extent you want. Like almost to the point that it's just like an overabundance in every fashion, in everything, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be everlasting or sustainable to it. So, I mean, yeah, you're going to have to grow a lot of vegetables in order to feed all the animals and everything else out there. But an individual who was self-sustaining really doesn't have to have that much land in order to be self-sustaining in food. Like, it's going to be hard to produce all the food that you need because you need the variety of it, but it's not difficult for somebody to produce enough food that you could trade and survive. Like, it's really not that hard. I mean, it's a lot, and it does take, I mean, it is hard, a lot of hard work, but it's not hard in the sense of how much space that you need. If you know what you're doing, you can produce a lot in a little area, and it's, I've done it, so. Let's see. I am smack in the middle of this epic snowstorm. It's starting to fall in Elma, New York. Yeah, it is clear as can be out, and soon I'm gonna lay out and watch the shooting stars. Solace is December 27th. Sun falls at 3:47. They're gonna get 4 feet. I don't know what that is. All right. What's a little area regarding food production? Well, I mean, obviously, I mean, there's like, to me, like, you could probably produce everything that you would need for an individual. If you really knew what you were doing, you could probably do it in an area, I would say like 10 foot by 10 foot. But you would really have to know what you're doing in that kind of small, cramped area. But it can be done inside of that. Now, I was amazed on how much like food that a friend of mine had done out of containers, and it was really impressive. They had a small like patio area, and I mean the amount of lettuce and like just like they had bean crops and carrots and all kinds of stuff. Like they had everything going on there, and it was just a small amount, and like they would just constantly be like seeding, like all throughout the summer. Like if they pulled some, they were seeding some, and so it was constant. It was just a constant, harvesting and planting that was taking place. But you really have to know what you're doing in that kind of, like, you have to be very on it, and just make it like, almost like a passion inside of your hobby to make that happen. But it is possible. Now, when we did gardens, like we did big areas, and so we could produce like an overabundance of stuff. You just, you plant a row, you just keep planting, you just get as much as you want in there. So if you have a lot of area, it's like, you can be like a lot less, careful with the space that you're using. You can just kind of plant wherever you want. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just like, a 10 by 10 area can produce a lot of food, like an insane amount. 40 acres and a mule. No, that's if you're going to go for like production and selling, man. Yui is the truth. His accuracy is incredible. Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's one of the things, like I tried to, tried to tell people, it's just like that was why I was using the fishing analogy earlier in the video earlier today. Is that you wonder, it's just like, man, how did this person get so good at fishing? And it's because they do it every day. They live it and they breathe it, and they can just they have an instincts for it after a while. But that's because they do it all the time. And so when you're out there doing it all the time, every time you are out there fishing, you get another experience that you are taking with you to add to all the rest of the experiences that you've ever had. That makes you a good fisherman. It's the same thing like, studying the economy. Every video you watch, every YouTuber who has a discussion, you know, everything that you're following out there, every little piece of nugget, every little information, that is making you a better person to make those decisions with your money. I mean, it's just like you can listen to a guy who has like, hey, this is what I did with my money. I was real successful with it. You could try and copy that same thing and not do very well. That's because you're not following what it is that you know and what you know to be true, right? So it's just like fishing out there. Studying the economy is the same thing. And once you get really good at it, as far as studying the economy and the things that you feel and you learned, well, then you can start making these predictions because you just get the sense for it. It's like, man, I have a feeling this is what they're up to, just like I have a feeling this is where the fish are going to be. It's the same thing. I saw Matthew just hit me up there. Right on. Thank you very much. The Lumberjack Landlord, $10. Simon is the best in the business. Hey, thank you. Well, when it comes to real estate, I think Matthew is the best in the business. And I tell you, man, I keep saying it over and over again, but my mom is just like addicted to the Lumberjack Landlord right now. She's like watching all the videos. She's reading the one rental at a time, and she had been in real estate for a while there. I mean, she had property in Hawaii and California and stuff. And after studying some of the stuff that she is following from the Lumberjack Landlord, she has said, man, I made so many mistakes, and he is talking about these things that I wish I had listened to before I had gotten started. So if you are in real estate, if you are going to get into real estate, if you are even thinking about it, you need to follow Lumberjack Landlord. I mean, his information is definitely on the top scales, and I can't brag him up enough. I mean, especially like I don't know anything about real estate because when I was in real estate, I failed. So I'm just now trying to get into real estate myself. So if you're trying to learn, you're on the same page that I'm on right now. So we all need to head over to Lumberjack Landlord and figure this stuff out, right? All right. Oh yeah, man. Yeah, Lumberjack Landlord says appreciate that, truly honored. No, man, I appreciate you reaching out and making contact with me, man, because it's really made a difference for me, especially with my bad attitude that I had towards real estate. I think like talking with you and just discussing some of these things has really kind of at least opened me up a little bit more, so I don't have that negative attitude towards it any longer. All right. Simon, what's your call for the inflation CPI in 2023? I don't know. I mean, I think inflation is going to come down. I think it's going to come down significantly. I think it's going to come back down to the 2%. It's going to go under 2%. Now, where in 2023 that's going to happen, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. Um, I thought that we probably would have seen a lot more of the inflation, like the inflation story coming down by now. But then again, like I always say, I always think these things are happening faster than they really do. It's a slow grind, right? So I couldn't tell you what it's going to be like in 2023. I just know that, from here on, inflation's probably not going to continue to go up until those real shortages kick in. And I don't know when those real shortages are going to kick in. Like, is that going to be in a year? Is it going to be 2 years? Is it going to be 6 months? I couldn't tell you, right? I mean, the inventory is still pretty high here in the United States, but after the holiday season, 6 months from now, we're probably going to see that inventory depleting, and there's not going to be a whole lot of new stuff coming in. So I don't know. Like, the middle of 2023 is going to be a very interesting time. I mean, that's a lot of people are predicting recession right then. We might be seeing unemployment rising right there. Who knows what's going to be going on with the housing market at that time. And then again, like, we don't know what the Federal Reserve is really up to. Like, are they going to have some other like form of tool that we don't know that they're going to introduce at that time to try and combat the recession? Are they really even going to need to even do any kind of quantitative easing or bailouts or anything like that? They have this, standing repo facility and plenty of cash and treasuries in the system right now. So I don't know what's going to happen in 2023. I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to figure out here right now. I can just think that the next 6 months, I would think that there's probably going to be monetary tightening and elevated interest rates for the next 6 months at least. Like, as far as those who are on hopium thinking there's going to be a return to the markets or something like that, to the stock market, I wouldn't be sitting in that on that boat. Like, not for me anyway. Um, I think 6 months is going to be like hunkering down time. Like, just hold on to as much cash, stay out of debt, pay off debt. Those are the type of things. Load up on canning supplies. I think, food is going to be a very difficult thing to source out coming into the future. Not necessarily like actually acquiring food, but acquiring food that's going to be affordable. I think that's going to be an issue in the next 6 months. So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a good time, right? But then once all this crap, like what is eventually going to happen is we're going to have a clearing out of bad debt. That's really what needs to happen, is like we need to have a clearing out of the bad debt. Once that happens and people suffer the consequences from that, then they can start dropping the interest rates, start, issuing out new loans, and start, looking for the green shoots, right? But they need to harvest. They need to harvest, and in order to harvest, they need to have people go bankrupt so that they can buy up all their stuff for cash on the dollars. I mean, if you think about it that way, it's kind of simple. You know how it works. All right, I'm doing bad with my credit cards. Currently, I'm struggling just to pay for rent and food and gas for my car. It's really hard to make money like I used to. Well, Kevin, I wish I could give you some advice, man, but right now, there is a lot of ways to make money, right? There is a lot of ways. And I'm not saying that you probably, like, you might have two jobs and just completely, like, fill your day up 100%. If that's the case, it's really difficult to try and figure out ways to earn more money to get it to come in. But if you can't find any more time to put towards earning money, then you got to figure out a way to cut your expenses. That's the only other way to go about it. So if you can cut your expenses, or if you can figure out another form of income, and it doesn't, like, this is something that I've tried to explain to people in the past, is that even if it seems like insignificant, try to earn any kind of extra money you can, even if it seems like it's not worth it. Like, if you have a day job, a regular job, and you're not doing anything else after work or before work or whatever, then try to earn some money. It doesn't matter how much you earn. And what's going to end up happening is that the subconscious will pick this up, and it will start forcing you, or not forcing you, but start leading you into the direction of earning money, because you are spending all your time trying to do that. And if you do that, then you are going to find that money starts flowing to you in a lot easier fashion, right? But it's because people get into this mindset that says, I can't earn enough, or I don't know how to earn it, or I can't do it, or it's impossible for me. Then your subconscious is totally going to agree with you and provide you with that life. So if you can't earn enough money, figure out a way to cut your expenses down. And then it doesn't matter, even if you have to spend 4 hours to try and earn $1, just do it, man, because what else are you doing with that 4 hours besides watching TV and scrolling the internet? So go out there and try to earn that $1. And if you can do it, the next day, if it takes you 4 hours to earn $2, go for it, because the next day after that, try to earn 4. And then pretty soon you're going to be earning more money during your off time than you are during your day job. And that's how you do it. I mean, you got to start off small. And even if you don't know what you're doing, just try and figure out how to earn $1. That's it. And if you can do that, then double that effort. And then pretty soon you'll be making a lot of money. Well, not pretty soon, after time. It takes time, right? Great channel. My wife, Megan, loves your content. Well, thank you very much, Brandon, for the $9.99. And thank your wife for watching the channel. I really appreciate it. All right, Lumberjack. Oh, he's talking to somebody here. All right, the Bitters and Hyder. What's up, guys? Used Prius price skyrocketed. Yeah. All right. I agree with Simon. Been doing DoorDash occasionally. Added 4,000 to 5,000 so far this year. Looking for more on the weekends. Yeah, and that's what's cool about DoorDash. Another friend of mine. She had a business trip that she had to go down to California for. And so she ended up renting some dude's electric Mustang while she was down there. And so in between this conference and hanging out with a friend of hers, she was running DoorDash down there and ended up like doing enough DoorDash to pay for the rental on the Mustang, which I thought was just absolutely brilliant. So she went down there for a business trip, rented a car, and then did work doing DoorDash to pay for the car while she was down there because she had nothing else going on. I mean, that's the way, like, again, she told me she came into town because she had to run her boy into town for a class or something. And so she was in town hanging out. She did a DoorDash, earned $10 while she was just hanging out in town waiting for her son to finish up with his class. That's that's how you do it, right? This is the type of way that you earn money on a regular basis, or try to earn money on a regular basis, or just anytime any opportunity comes up. Because if you're thinking of it, then it's going to start presenting it to you. It's going to present to you these opportunities. But you have to go and pursue it. You have to give at least some sort of effort that you're going to try for it before it'll start showing you that here it is. These are the ways you do it. And it's possible for everybody out there, you know. Take care of essential first. Check out Dave Ramsey. Cut extras. Cable, eating out, sell stuff, fix meals at home, pack your lunch, pay for the smallest credit card first, then take the payment to the next credit card. Yeah, and I agree with pretty much all that stuff in there. You know, one of the things, like, if you really want to have a lot of money, drive a POS. Drive a shitty car, right? It's the easiest way to save a lot of money. You don't have to put a, like, $500 Toyota Corolla. I bought it a couple of years ago. Insurance is cheap. Gas is cheap. Somebody sideswiped it. I didn't care, right? That's the way you make money, because, like, I could be spending $600-700 a month just to have a car, right? And I probably put, I'm guessing, maybe $200 a month into this car. That's if I'm, like, really driving it a lot. I mean, that's insurance, that's maintenance, that's gas, that's everything. Like, I mean, that's if I'm really driving this car. Like, I don't even think it cost me that much to drive this thing around. So, I mean, think about it. That's $6,000 a year I save just by having a POS, right? I mean, that's one way to do it. Get rid of your fancy car and go drive a shitty car. I mean, well, how much status do you really need? I mean, unless you're, like, trying to pick up girls or something like that, I don't know why you would want a nice car, right? I mean, and even then, if that's why she likes you, then she ain't much of a girl, right? You know? All right, the average new car payment in America is $744. Holy crap, I didn't know that. I didn't realize it was that high. Jesus. Should have started this belt tightening thing in 2020. Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing for me. Like, I was, like, broke, like, super broke. So when I started paying off my debts, I was paying them off when I didn't acquire anything first and then pay off my debts. I paid off all my debts and I was still broke. Like, I mean, I had no money, no car, no nothing going on. But then once you're in that position, you don't have any debts to pay. Well, shit, that gives you, like, a whole lot of, like, room to move, right? And so I didn't have a whole lot of money. I found this car, right? $500. So I got the car, but then I just kept my living, like, I do go out a little bit more. No, I shouldn't say a lot more than I used to. But that was something I never did for the family. Like, I would never go out to restaurants. I would never take them anywhere. I didn't have the money. I didn't even really have the ability to do that. So now I guess I'm making up for lost time by doing that. But still, like, I drive the old car because, you know, if I drive this old car, well, then I have the money to take my family out and do things with. So really, it's the dive into luxuries that screws everybody up. It really is. And I mean, I can understand if you make a lot of money, like, if you're really in it, then, you know, having luxuries is cool. But if you're just the average working dude, I mean, there is no point in driving a fancy vehicle, especially if you have a family that you're trying to take care of. Driving a fancy vehicle is damaging. All right. Aren't we in a recession? I don't know. It seems like we're in a recession, but I don't know. Everybody keeps saying, or the, you know, the officials, I should say, keep saying that we're not in recession, but I don't know. Janet Yellen said we weren't ever going to have another recession in our lifetime. So will we ever have a recession again? Who knows? Like, a lot of people don't realize that we even went through a recession during the pandemic. It was the shortest, deepest recession in history, and people just totally just didn't even realize it happened. But of course, they were told to stay home, don't go to work, don't make their payments, and here's some money. So why would you see a recession if that happened? All right. When the car breaks, tow it around for the vids. Yeah, I might. Thank you for the content. I love listening. Well, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. And besides, what we got? 352 of you. Go and hit that like button. And we'll get I'll stay out here for another, say, 20 minutes, all right? So go hit the like button. We'll see if we can't get the algorithm to pick up a few more people to come in here to the chats, and we'll just have a little bit more discussion here for a while. When that car breaks, oh, tow it around, we already did that. Let's see here. Not, oh, where'd you go? Not in a recession, but inflation is causing an economic crisis. Not every bad economic event is a recession. Yeah. I don't think the inflation is causing it. I think it's a supply chain breakdown causing all the problems. That's what I think it is. I think the Federal Reserve was in a big attempt to try and provide enough of their liabilities for the world's demand for dollars. I think that was part of the quantitative easing programs. I think the severing of the supply chain gave them the ability to do that. I think the inflation scenario that we are speaking of, that we find here in the United States, the price increases, is due more to the fact that we had less supply coming through during a demand that was falsely presented with the stimulus check. I think it was all set up so that they could get the interest rates up to that 5%. I think it was done in a way that they could do it so that they could introduce the central bank digital currencies next time that the recession does kick in and they have to stimulate the economy. I think it's all set up for that. And if we do see where the Federal Reserve drops the interest rates to 5%, realizes that it's not enough to stimulate the economy and that they have to go into a central bank digital currency to try and go negative with their Fed funds rate, I think it's all going to be done during a crisis scenario, and they're probably going to use food as the main power to just get people to just voluntarily just line right up for it. So I don't know, like that's what I see happening from everything that I've studied. By deflation, we have been in recession. Changing definition is a lie. By definition, we have been in recession. Changing definition is a lie. Yeah. Well, I mean, even inflation, right? The way they studied inflation or determined inflation back in the early 80s or 70s or whatever is not the way they do it now, but yet they'll say inflation back then was this, inflation today is this, and they try to compare those two numbers even though they're not the same numbers. It's not even like, it's not even comparing the same thing at all. The way somebody kind of describes it, it's like, I mean, a lot of people say it's like comparing a steak to ground beef or something, but to me, it's not even comparing a steak to ground beef. It's like comparing a steak to a eggplant. It's like not even the same thing anymore. It's not even close. Yeah. All right. Don't work 4 hours for $1. That's terrible advice. Think in abundance and positive. No, I'm not saying that. Okay. Let's take it back for a second, okay? What I was trying to get at is that you need to switch your subconscious. I'm not saying that people should go out there and work 4 hours for $1. That's ridiculous, right? What I'm saying is that if you go out there and you work 4 hours for $1, what you are going to do is you're going to get your subconscious to start thinking that I need to start earning money, right? And instead of having the subconscious that says, I can't do it, I can't figure it out, I don't earn enough, my reasons that I'm like in trouble with this is because somebody else, that switches when you start going for money, right? And if it takes, and I'm not saying you should figure out a way to spend 4 hours to try and earn $1. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is like, pursue money, even if it takes you 4 hours to do it, right? Just the thought of heading in that direction will eventually lead you into abundance. That's what I'm trying to get at. All right, boomers are being replaced with migrants, similar to the movie Gran Torino. I don't know. All right. Just the plateau. What is that? Just the Plato's cave? Those shadows on the cave wall are all there is to reality. Ignore the person who broke his chin and climbed out of the cave and says there's a giant fireball in the blue sky. Huh. Okay. Simon, check out Owen Benjamin on Odyssey. I think you would enjoy his perspective. Actually, Owen Benjamin sent me not a video, an email the other day. So I'm gonna go and like listen to a few of his podcasts and stuff, and give him a call and see if I can't get him to come on for an interview. Um, Hopefully in the next few weeks or so. I'm gonna try and set up some interviews. I've talked to a couple of people now. We're gonna get Lumberjack Landlord. We're gonna get Matthew on. He's gonna be like my first interview, and we'll start seeing what we can do after that. Um, I would love to get Owen Benjamin on. I know he's like, you guys have talked him up quite a few times, and I know he's like, dropped my name quite a few times on his stuff. So it's time that we have a full-on discussion, and I would love to do a video so that you guys could see what that discussion was like. And all right, moving on here. Make money, money make money, money make money. Yeah. All right. I heard of you from Owen. Right on. Yeah. And, it was pretty cool because, like, quite a few people, I mean, I guess he's been dropping my name quite a bit because quite a few people have told me that that's where they found me was through Owen Benjamin. So I'm going to have to give him a great big thank you for that. I mean, I don't know how many of you, follow me now because of that, but I know it's a lot. So I really appreciate that. Wouldn't more big government stimulus checks help people pay off their bills after the national debt is just a figure on a paper and really doesn't affect anybody? But it does. It does affect people, and that's the problem with it is that the stimulus check, yes, it will stimulate, and yes, it will do all kinds of things for the people. However, the problem with it is that if you really want to understand it a little bit better, follow Dr. Lacey Hunt. He really does a much better job talking about how low interest rates or even negative interest rates will slow the economy down. It's actually a drag on the economy. And instead of like stimulating the economy, like the dropping of interest rates and the stimulus checks, instead of stimulating the economy and making things better for the people, what it does is it gives you a shot in the arm, makes you feel better, but then it'll drag you down over time. Because ultimately what happens is that all that debt that is issued out for your stimulus is a short-term high that needs to be paid back with interest, which means that at some point you have to postpone your current spending to pay for the past consumption. And that's where those stimulus checks are going to be more harmful to the people going into the future, having to pay those things back. And that's like, a lot of people just think, well, it's a debt doesn't matter. It's just a number on a screen. They can just give you out as much. Well, if the debt doesn't matter, then the money that they issued you didn't matter either. So the debt does matter, okay? And it will come back to haunt us. Now, ultimately, what it's going to come back to haunt us in is the lack of production within the United States. And that's really where I was like kind of equated down to the beers and saws analogy. And that when all these stimulus checks came out and handed out to the people went out there and bought a bunch of beer with it, which is cool for the moment, right? Because as you're buying the beer and drinking the beer, there's a lot of activity happening within the economy. I mean, there's a lot of production that goes in the beer. You got transportation, agriculture, and entertainment, advertising. There's a lot of money that goes into beer, right? And so if you think about like everything that was purchased in the economy was like a beer, right? And it all got consumed. Well, now we have to pay for that beer, which means you have to work with a hangover to pay for that consumption that you had done, which is very difficult for people to try and handle. Nobody wants to work with a hangover, and let alone that they don't want to have to spend that money they earned with a hangover on something that they did in the past, right? So none of that sits well with the people. However, had that money instead had gone into saws, there would have been a different scenario. We wouldn't have come out of that, recession. People wouldn't have been stimulated with those checks and going out there and spending all that money. Instead, what have happened is that people would have ended up going to work. They would have worked really hard, not got a lot from that because they would have had to pay for those saws, the debt with it. But eventually, the working of the saws would eventually pay off the debt, and then the production would start going to the people, and they can buy as much beer as they want. Now, I'm not trying to say like, the communist thought of it, saying that we should have forced the people to go to work and do all this other stuff. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. What I'm trying to say is like, that's the problem that happened within the economy and why it's not going to work, right? Instead of allowing a free market to just function on its own, they try to stimulate. And by stimulating, you're actually manipulating the markets and you're causing more problems into the future. It's like trying to put your finger into the dam and then watching it spring out in someplace else, or maybe in two different places, right? So you keep trying to put your finger and block off all the water that's coming out of this dam, and you just simply can't do it because it keeps spitting out every place else. So it's the same thing. Like, really, if you want to try and fix the economy, which there is no fixing the economy, there is no fixing anything like that. Like, there's, some people think the economy is just fine and they're, doing quite well with this. So there's no problems happening with them. So for there to be like a problem for the economy, it's just a problem for you with the economy, right? Somebody else might be doing just fine. But really what it comes down to is that if you really want to try and fix the economy, then you have to get people to produce, consume only the necessities and not move into luxuries. That's the only way it can happen. Other than that, then it's going to be cyclical. You're going to have a buildup until it gets to a point, and then it'll crack and it'll fall. Everybody goes into suffering, redistribution of wealth gets, moved out to, throughout the land again, and then it all concentrates back into a few hands again. It's just the way it goes. I don't know if there's anything that can be done that'll ever change that. All right. Thank you, B Dan 82 for the $2. Any charities that fight global hunger you like? Okay. No. The only thing that I can think of that you could do to try and fight hunger is to act locally. Take care of the people who are within your vicinity, right? I mean, that's the only way that it can be done. There is never going to be a time in history that there won't be people starving and going hungry. There won't be. There just never will be. There will never be a time in history where there isn't homeless and poverty, right? I mean, it's just like, look at any time in history. If you could give me one example of a time in history where that didn't occur, where there wasn't homeless and poverty, then I would like say, okay, then we can work on plans to try and create that situation again. But there's never been a time in history where you didn't have homeless and poverty and hunger. It's just going to be part of it. And if you really are wanting to do something about it, then act locally. That's the only thing I could suggest, because there's no charity out there that is going to take care of world hunger that isn't going to be like in it for themselves. Like nonprofit organizations that deal with world hunger, I don't believe exist. I think that's false. All right. Hey, what is this? Super endorsement? Thank you very much for the $5. Bertaria? Look into it. Okay. Infamous NYC. Thank you very much for the $2, man. Even Jesus said, "You'll always have the poor." Right. I mean, that's just the case. And, like, I'm not like deeply involved with the homeless community here in Astoria, right? But I do know a lot of the people here. Like in Astoria, it's not that big of a town. There's only 10,000 people here. And if you grew up here, then, you recognize the faces of everybody around town. And, the homeless community around here, I've talked with them many times, and I try to help out when I can. I've served lunches down at, the Filling Empty Bellies, and, and I bought a wagon for a girl one time who, had all her stuff stolen, and she couldn't haul her stuff around. And I talk with them, like, what is it that could be done? Like, what is it that you need? What is it that, that the homeless community, what do they want? What do they want that they could use? And I hate to say it, but really what it comes down to, it's a mental condition. It's mental issues. It's mental deterioration that is happening there. And yeah, granted, there's a lot of people who ran into some really hard times and kind of messed up with their life or whatever, and they ended up on the streets, and it ends up as like a magnet. If you don't have family or really close friends or somebody who can help you get off the street, it is very difficult. Like, one of the things like I asked, I was just like, well, there's plenty of work out there. Why don't you go to work? And they're like, well, you have to protect your stuff because there's no place to put your stuff. And even though it's not that great of stuff, because, how awesome of stuff can a homeless person really have, but it is all the stuff that they have in the entire world. That's in their entire world. and they go to work and somebody will steal all their stuff or trash it or throw it away or whatever. So that's one of the problems that they like literally have. It's one of the serious complaints that they have is just like, they would go to work, like they can find the work, but they can't protect their stuff when they're gone. And so it was just like something as simple as just being able to lock their stuff up in a facility would give them a huge, you know, benefit. But like, how do you do that? Like, how do you create like a locker system in which that they can charge their phone and not have like to pay for it or whatever? I mean, it's just like this, it's not an easy concept to try and wrap your head around. So there's really nothing that can be done, except for to try and deal with the mental health deterioration that is happening out there. And I mean, there's so many people out there who are trying to make a living, who have mental health issues that I think we should work on first before we try and take care of somebody who's not helping themselves yet, right? So I don't know what to do. Like, there's nothing that can really be done, you know? All right, Arthur, thank you so much for the $5 Canadian. I really appreciate that. Left Canada 2 months ago because of inflation and moved back to Africa. Canada is becoming too expensive. Yeah, I can see that happening. Feed yourself on 100 square feet? No way. I think you can. I disagree. I don't think you can do all the food that you need, but I think you can grow an abundance of food on 100 square feet for yourself. It won't be easy, and you're gonna have to try at it, but it can be done. I mean, well, okay. Actually, I will go and find where Cantillon was talking about how much land an individual needs to live. And I think it was somewhere, I don't think it was much more than that 100 square feet. I think that's what, I'm pretty sure that's what he was talking about. But I'm going to go and find that in his essay because he talks about that exact thing. So, and we'll see what Cantillon had to say about that. Canada going woke. Oh, whatever that is. All right, I started on the furnace floor. Zimmerman's second helper feeding a 115-ton DC arc furnace. Millwright apprenticeship. Man, that would have been a fun job to have, working in a big steel mill like that or something. My son has a foreign exchange student from Ukraine at his school, and he said it took like $46 of Ukraine currency to get $1. I have to Google the exchange rate. Yeah. We can also eat bark and clay. Yeah, okay. Canada is allowing assisted suicide. Yeah, they do that here in Oregon too. We here in America are in decay spiral, but it seems like Canada is turbocharged. Yeah, like I said, guys, I mean, I honestly think this is all about a breakdown to eventually lead us into a central bank digital currency, but I don't think it's like a force. Like, a lot of people think that it's like forcefully done, like it's done on purpose to try and create this situation. I think they just knew the situation was coming. Like, I mean, like, I just feel that at some point they just knew that the debt cycle was eventually going to run out. They were going to hit the zero lower bound on the interest rates, and the only way to continue on with the system is to go negative. And there's no way you can go negative without cash being removed from the system. So I really think that's what this is all about. It's about tokenizing, it's about going digital, and it's about going negative with the interest rates. I think that's like the ultimate plan in the end. And like I said, not because of some nefarious plan, like they want to have like total control, which they do, but I think they just knew that they were going to lose control due to the fact that the debt cycle was going to run out. Yeah. My father worked 41 years at Great Lakes Steel. What are we at here? 1 hour and 8. All righty, guys. I'm going to give it about another 5-10 minutes here, and then I'm gonna head out and go and see if we can watch some shooting stars or something. So still clear out. I talked to a guy in Oregon who was so frustrated that he's forced to move out of his state because of the high prices. It's frustrating to go through. Yeah, I agree with that. Oregon is very, especially in the area that I'm at right now, it's very expensive. The housing is expensive. The cost of living is expensive. It's definitely a higher priced place to live. I mean, I think the whole West Coast is that way. So, there's definitely cheaper places in the world to live. That's for sure. And if I didn't have like the YouTube channel, I probably wouldn't be here either. Like I would have had to leave because I just simply wouldn't have been able to afford to live in Astoria. So that's another great thing that I really have to thank you guys for, because if I didn't have this channel, I don't think I'd be here. And I like Astoria. I mean, Astoria is a very clean, it's friendly, it's nice. I mean, I like being here. It's a good place to be. Wouldn't central bank digital currencies zero initially be a debt jubilee? No, because I think you're still going to end up having to pay your debts, right? I mean, isn't a debt jubilee where they just like basically take all the debts away and say that they're gone. So I don't think that would necessarily be the case. How cold is it over there? Right now, it is pretty cold. In the mornings, it's been like, I don't know, around 30 to 34 degrees or so. The afternoons have been a little bit nicer, but yeah, it's still pretty chilly out. I feel like my real estate agent is a zombie corporation. Looks like all is well on the surface, but yeah, your YouTube channel deserves your YouTube channel deserves more. Well, I mean, I'm gonna keep pushing. I mean, I keep saying I'm going to do things, but I am going to do stuff. Like I'm gonna start doing more speaking engagements. I really want to do that kind of stuff. I would love to have something that I could sell you guys, like a book. I think that would be something that I can make the channel grow bigger with, as if I had like a book to sell. But then then I would actually have something I could sell you guys. But I think like the channel itself, what I'm doing here, putting the videos out every day, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm going to continue to do this, this so long as you guys keep watching the videos. But as far as like, what I need to do next, I really do feel that that's probably the next step, is that I need to start doing speaking engagements. I'm going to start small. Like I'm going to start really small, local here with just, a handful of people, and then start pushing bigger venues and see how big it can really get. I would love to have like not necessarily like a stand-up routine, but I would love to have like not like a economics lecture thing going, but like tell my story or whatever, and then make it fun and exciting for people to come to listen to, even if you're not into economics, even if you just want to just be entertained by it. That's what I'm kind of shooting for. And if I could get like a nice like hour and a half long presentation, something like that, I think that would be a lot of fun to just take on the road and just just do it all over the place, and that would be fun. Uneducated economist on the road, All right. Podcast. Yeah, I have a podcast. It's called You Guys Let Me Know. You can find a link to it in the description. I do all these videos. They all go up onto the podcast. So if you'd rather listen to the videos as opposed to watching them on YouTube, you can find that You Guys Let Me Know podcast. And like I said, I'll leave a link down in the description for you guys too. All right. Town hall, and explain what's going on and why there's distress. Yeah, I've thought about that. Like a lot of like we had a fairly big issue taking place with the homeless community here in Astoria, and everybody was trying, like they had like these town hall meetings, like how to what to do about it. And of course, everybody has blame, and everybody has like these excuses and stuff like that, but hardly anybody ever has like any kind of real reasoning behind it. Ultimately it's coming from the divide. There's going to be a bigger divide going into the future. It's going to be the separation between the rich and the poor. And that's why I'm so like adamant about telling people, like, to be sure to get on the right side of this wedge. Like, you do not want to be on the lower side of it, because it's going to be so difficult to try and get to the other side as this wedge drives deeper and deeper. I mean, you're going to find the separation of classes. Eventually it's going to be like only the rich and only and only the poor, and really nothing in between. And the ultra rich are going to be super rich. Like, they're going to be stupid, ridiculously rich. And the poor aren't going to even really notice that they're poor because everything is going to be provided for them, but they will never have a chance to ever make it to that kind of level of being rich. So I'm not saying, like, here's your last ditch opportunity, but it's going to get ever increasingly harder from here on out. So, like, if you're not trying to do it now, you're not going to find a time easier in the future. That's what I guess I'm going to say. So, all right. Alrighty, guys. I'm going to give it one more question here, and then I'm going to go and watch Shooting Stars with my family. And not a TV show, like watch a meteor shower if I can. All right. I think it's great start, Simon. I'd attend. Well, I appreciate it, and I know a lot of you guys would attend. And I want to make it good. I want to make it good and make it something that's real. It's gonna be authentic for sure. I mean, because you guys know me, I'm not gonna do anything that isn't me. But I want to make it like good, something that is like, I want it to be something that people who aren't into economics would want to come see. That's what I really would love this like presentation to be. So anyway, that's what I'm going to work on, and hopefully we'll get there. Thanks for everyone's participation. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you, All Nighter. And thank you guys for being here. Do speaking events after Meet Bingo. That I thought about that. But what's funny about Meet Bingo is that as soon as I get done with calling Meet Bingo, the bar clears out immediately. Boom, they're gone. Like, everybody's like, okay, we're done. We're out of here. We go home. So there's nobody left. But I have thought about that. Like, that would be a good, because I would already be at a place that people could come to, and we could have, like, say, a night discussion. I mean, I do bingo until 9 o'clock. And so I could do like a 9 o'clock, 9 to 10 economics discussion every Sunday night at the bar or something like that. But that's kind of late, and a lot of people got to work the next day. So it would be cool to have a place that more people would want to go to and attend during a like earlier time of day and different kind of facility. Thanks for your insights, Yui. Yeah, no problem. What's your name? I'm calling the police. Great name. Thank you very much. Q&A with Yui live at the bingo, or live at the Legion. There you go. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that would be fun. We'll start setting stuff up like that. I'm gonna start doing interviews. Like I said, I'm gonna get Matthew to do an interview with me in the next week or so, and then I'll try and start doing more regular interviews, and then try to do speaking engagements. Q&A discussion would be awesome, to just go and find a place to sit down, maybe do a quick talk about a topic, and then we have a Q&A after that, and just kind of just discuss whatever topics that we bring up. Maybe not too far off of like what we're doing here on this live stream. That would be a lot of fun. We could even live stream it, and I could have somebody like reading questions off the comments during something like that. So there's all kinds of things we can do. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to figure that out. So we got something cool here going, and we can continue to do it. So I'm gonna go hang out with the family, guys. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.